It's not easy. So a lot of folks want an easy button. I wish I had an easy button. I only have a no button on my desk and a dad joke button. I have an easy button in the closet.
I don't think you need an easy button. Like, if you have those two, I think you've got every button you ever need.
That's probably true.
I view Josh as erosion. So all of those little grits of sand, overnight, I know I'm not going to make that change. I accept I'm going to come into an organization trying to derive change, and I have learned to accept the reality that it will not happen overnight. But I have become confident in my skills, my experience, and my beliefs that over time, that mountain that was in front of me, my grit will have eroded it away. And you'll turn around, 18 months later, and oh, there used to be a mountain there.
And it's Mr. Miyagi and Danielson, and Josh is going to be Danielson. And so, and it's like, Danielson, be like water. What do you mean, Mr. Miyagi? You just be like water. You flow around, you flow through, you flow whatever. Be constant. Be like water. Ah, Mr. Miyagi, I understand what you're saying. And what else do you have to offer? Entry music. Da, 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 da. Dun, da, 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 da. It's the Bob and Josh Show.
Robert, today's episode has a couple different potential labels. It could be the Yes You Can episode, but it also can be the How to Get Shit Done episode. We'll just see how the words tumble out of our brains and see where that lands. So you okay with that? Can you work with that?
I can work with anything. Can you cook what the Rock is smelling?
I don't think so.
I don't know. A Rock reference. Yeah. This is the way to start.
Yeah.
What was the phrase? No, we got to finish. Can you smell what the Rock is cooking?
There you go. You nailed it.
Yeah,
good job.
Yeah. I smell what the Rock is cooking, Joshua.
Yes, exactly. All right. So to make sure that all of our listeners are smelling what we are cooking, we'll kind of lay the foundation for what we are talking about here. Is one of the things that struck me, and Bob and I talked about a little bit over the previous week or so, is that I fear that there are many leaders, many employees that are out there, many team members that are out there that are looking at this insurmountable thing and just have like given up hope. Like, this sucks. That's the way it is. I hate it. It's never going to change. It's never going to get better. And with that attitude, you're right. It won't. So what we're here to talk about today is flipping the attitude into like, yes, you can make that change. Yes, you can get your team to adopt a new pattern, get them to try something new. It's obviously not going to be easy because it hasn't happened yet, but you can. And if you cannot adopt the mindset that you can make it happen, then it will never happen. So that's what today's episode is going to be focused on, is helping you take those first baby steps to overcoming that big hurdle, that big scary monster that's out there that you just really would like to get rid of. But up until now, you've thought that'll never happen. And we're here to tell you, yes, you can. And most importantly, give you a few tips on how to make it happen.
It's fortuitous, Josh, because I was talking to a coach. I was coaching a coach this week, and she was, she attended a class of mine a while back, and then I do some follow up, free coaching and things, and we had a coaching session for an hour, and she was really frustrated because leaders in the organization weren't behaving. So she's an agile coach, Scrum Master agile coach, has in the entire organization probably has some of the most experience, but not a seat at the leadership table, and has been hinting around or suggesting to leaders to make changes, and is really in this place where they're pointy-headed evil leaders. They're never going to change, and I'm getting really frustrated about telling them or teaching them. And one of the things I said is, one thing I said was, you have to join people where they are. And she thought she was. And I was like, so you want to affect change? Yes, you can. She is a yes, you can person.
Mm-hmm.
But what she hasn't done, one thing she hasn't done is join them in the arena where they're operating. So she's on the periphery of the field of play and yelling, scrum, whip limits, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Story points. And like they're not getting it. And I was like, yeah, but you didn't join them with empathy, and you didn't join them on the field of play. So I think one of the things with Yes You Can is you have a yes you can attitude, but you have to join folks with the yes you can. You have to get in the game. That's what I was trying to say to her. And I didn't tell her that. I just said, please consider this. And I said, my feeling is you may not be in the game with them. And that may be one of the problems. You're casting. It's sort of like a football metaphor. Everyone has an opinion about the team
Right.
from the
There's
outside.
usually
Sport,
70,000 people in the stadium and millions at home telling every
yeah.
player what they're doing
Well,
wrong.
and then the sports pundits are even worse, right? They
Yeah.
always have
Yeah.
to have an opinion, and I'm like, that's okay. But I was like, if you really want to affect change, if you really want to step into yes, I can, then you need to stop being on the periphery and get in the game. So that to me, that I want to hear your reaction to that.
Yeah. That brings back some of the things that we've talked to probably the past year and a half. And you've been able to formalize it more effectively than I have because some of the training that you've taken in the ORSC world. And a thing that we've talked about is trying to, instead of working against someone, being across the table, which it sounds like what you're talking about, where the problem is between the two people, which is
Yep.
what this person was really struggling with, and working to where you turn it, you put it on a whiteboard effectively, and now you're shoulder to shoulder working together on the same problem. And that's really one of the things that Bob is talking about here that is super effective, but not easy to be able to get both sides of the table, because that's how it's currently working, to get both sides of the table to now get on the same side of the table and really understand how both sides are looking at the world and understand the lens that your opponent is viewing the world with, and be able to put that lens on yourself. And when you do that, you will be amazed at how well you see what the actual problems are. And that is really, really hard for a ton of reasons. Number one, you have to be willing to invest the time and understand. And number one, be willing to see the world from a completely different angle and accept that there is a reality. There are views, there are lenses, there are valid reasons that someone else is viewing the world in this way. Again, we go back to a thing we've said a ton of times, which is assuming positive intent. Everybody on the other side of the table is doing their darndest. They're doing everything they can to do what they think is right, what they believe is the most important thing. Now you're coming in trying to get them to go in a different way, not necessarily the opposite way, but a different way. And so that can be difficult for them to see and understand. So you are going to have to do the work. As the one wanting to affect the change, you have to accept that you're going to have to do all the work to make that happen, because you are the one that has this vision that, hey, if we can make this change, it can be better. The folks on the air quote other side of the table don't see that yet. And so they're not just going to magically wake up one day and like, oh, I get it. All of a sudden, you're going to have to work your tail off to get them to see and understand that.
You know, the other thing she struggled with is she was basically afraid. She's like, well, I lack confidence. And she was putting up these things like, I don't understand the domain. Well, I'm like, well, then listen to understand the domain, or work to so you don't, empathy doesn't come naturally. You have to work hard to build empathy of the perspective of the other people. So build that. But then it was like, oh, but then I would be at risk, right? I would have to, when I'm on the field, right? I might fail.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And oh, well, that's hard. Well, no shit, that's hard. Yes, that actually may be why it's hard for them. And when you talk, they look at you like you have 8 heads because they're in the game and they
Right.
can either win or they can lose. Oh, but I want them to listen to me, but I don't want to get in the game and take all the risks. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I was like, you know, that's that's part of, it's not just empathy, this soft thing. It's get your, the French, but get your ass in the game, right? And influence from that perspective. And you'll get some respect from the people in the game.
Yeah, I recognize, sympathize, and understand that feeling. For a significant portion of my career, I changed jobs because I got frustrated in situations with how leaders were making choices and the decisions that were made. They didn't align, and I felt like I did everything I could. But then I had an opportunity to go somewhere else where I now had the opportunity to make those choices, where now it was on me. I'm like, oh, good. Like, this is it. This is my time. Then I remember the moment, the time when that happened. And it was like one of those like zoom in scenes in a movie where like somebody realizes something and the camera like zooms in and they have that like, oh shit face. Yeah. So that
yeah.
happened to me because I realized all of a sudden, wait a minute, if this fails, I can't point the finger at anybody else.
And anybody else.
Yeah, it is all on me. So Josh, this is what you wanted. You dummy. Now, if it fails, it's all your fault. And you were that person this like was doing the same thing that we're talking about here. We're like, oh, the leaders are stupid. They don't get it. They don't understand. Now I was the leader and I realized that the likelihood of me screwing up was high. And then I couldn't point. I couldn't complain. I couldn't do anything else. It was on me. I got over that pretty quickly because I was like, okay, this is what you wanted. It's time to like put up or shut up now. And so, I made mistakes along the way. I learned I'm still making mistakes, but I got comfortable with the reality that, okay, this is what you wanted. If you want to drive change, if you want to shape organizations in the way you've always dreamed, if you want to build the dream team, if you want to build technology the way you've always thought it should, and there have been these things holding you back, this is what it feels like to not have those things holding you back. Yeah, it's scary. Yeah, it's risky. But I realized that I would prefer that over the other side of the table. But it was scary. And so that's a reality that everybody's going to go through, exactly what this person that Bob was coaching went through. They thought about walking through that door. They like cracked the door open, looked in the room, was like, ooh, that's terrifying. Maybe I'm going to stay here.
Exactly.
Then you can't complain. So,
and it's, again, Metacasters, this is the Get Shit Done, Yes You Can episode. So part of Yes You Can is have that, don't sit on your butt. So one of the points is get your mindset into a point of action. Yes, you can, right? If you have ideas, yes, you can. So do it. So then what are some of the tools or tactics? The first one we talked about is get your butt. Don't just be one of these people that make suggestions without skin in the game. And the world is chock full of people like that, right? They're whispering in Josh's ear. Oh, right. Josh has courage. I'll whisper in his ear. And if it, and then, I'm sort of and then I'll step back. And if it succeeds, it's my idea. And if it fails, it's Josh's problem or whatever. You have to get in the field. All right. Right. So you have to get in the game, figure out how to get in the game, how to partner, how to have empathy, how to be partnering in the solutioning and things like that. The other thing, so another tool or tactic or idea is it ain't easy. It's not easy. So a lot of folks want an easy button. I wish I had an easy button. I only have a no button on my desk and a dad joke button. I have an easy button in the closet.
I don't think you need an easy button. Like if you have those two, I think you've got every button you ever really need.
That's probably true. That's probably true. But my point, I want to bring up a word. I want everyone to scribble it down. Angela Duckworth is her name. She's written a book called Grit, Grit, grittiness, persistence, grit, courage, stick-to-itiveness, dogged determination. Be gritty, because good ideas take time. I mean, I can guarantee you Josh has 100 stories where he had all of the stuff we're talking about and it wasn't freaking easy. And he had to activate and he got shot down. and he had a problem, and he had a failure, and he had a this, and he had a that. When you start companies, if you're ever a founder, founders know this, or successful founders know this. You got to be gritty, right? You got to be a lot of other attributes, but one of the things is you have to be gritty. You have to see it through. Hard work and determination. So that's another thing you have to work on. Josh, you're a gritty fellow. Talk about that.
Speaking about grit, and I'll give you a visual. This is how I view the world of Josh driving change. I view Josh as erosion. So all of
Ooh.
those little grits of sand, overnight, I know I'm not going to make that change. I accept I'm going to come into an organization trying to drive change, and I have learned to accept the reality that it will not happen overnight. But I have become confident in my skills, my experience, and my beliefs that over time, that mountain that was in front of me, my grit will have eroded it away. And you'll turn around, 18 months later and, oh, there used to be a mountain there. And I'll just be like, yeah, there did. Wonder how that happened. But that truly is exactly what Bob talked about, of just having the willingness to day in and day out fight the fight, because you have to believe you can do it, because it is difficult. This is another visual that I talk about. Like, I am that guy that will keep running into the wall head first, and my forehead is going to be bloodied. I might break my nose, but I'm going to bounce up. I'm going to do it again, because every time I see like a little fleck of dust, fall off of that one brick, I'm like, ooh, that's it. That's all I need. So that has been part of my journey. Is when I was younger, I really, really struggled because I was incapable of seeing those small victories along the way. So I got frustrated and I would start to give up. But then I got some feedback, some coaching. Bob was certainly a part of this, of learning to see the small victories along the way. And then, like erosion, I was able to see, oh, there's a little chink in that armor. Okay, cool. Yeah. Now let's push even harder. Now let's go faster. Let's do this. Right. So that's an example of how you have to view the world. And it is going, this big thing you want to do that we're telling you, yes, you can, it is going to take you 18 months. Just put that in your brain. It's not going to be done for 18 to 24 months. Just accept that. Okay, cool. That'll tell you how committed you really are to making this happen. And if you look at that, you realize that you're like, maybe I don't want to do it. Then just accept that. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That doesn't mean you've given up. It just means like, okay, cool. I've realized that's not that important to me, and I'm going to stop complaining about it. So that's the other side, is that maybe don't run blindly into the street every time. Recognize like, okay, cool. There's something here that I'm passionate about, that I really care about, that I'm worth fighting for 18 to 24 months every day, doggedly, to make this happen. And you might look around and see 7 things that you say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. And let me tell you, there was a period in Josh's life where Josh didn't say no to those big, scary things.
Yeah.
And that was really dumb. And I started like 3 companies at one time because I had all these answers and all these things I wanted to do. And I remember there was a point not too long after that where I'm like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. And I'm going to never do that again, because I had gotten to this point of like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. It's like, no, let's get some focus. So also you have to get comfortable with, okay, I'm not willing to put in the effort to make that happen. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you give up. That doesn't mean you're a whiner, you're a complainer, any of that. It's just like, okay, yeah, that's a thing. I'm going to accept that. And that's how it is. Maybe I'll go tackle it some other day, but not today. I'm going to focus on this.
So, Metacasters, I'm going to have a movie vignette to amplify Josh's point. And it's Mr. Miyagi and Danielson, and Josh is going to be Danielson. And so, and it's like, Danielson, be like water. What do you mean, Mr. Miyagi? You just be like water. You flow around, you flow through, you flow whatever. Be constant. Be like water. Ah, Mr. Miyagi, I understand what you're saying. And what else do you have to offer? Daniel-san, focus. focus. I will, Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
That's it. What do you
Yeah.
think? I will never do that again, Josh.
Was that,
I could read his face, Metacasters.
I
He's
feel
like
like,
he was horrified.
let me connect the dots for everybody listening and watching. That was what you just saw and heard was a Bob replaying the past like 10 years, wrapping it up with like, I told you so, Josh. These are things I told you that now you've realized, and let's replay it and let's make sure Josh knows that I told you all these things a long time ago. And if you would have just listened to me, your life would have been less bumpy. And so
I wasn't quite going there, but I appreciate
not
that.
quite, but you know, that was a nice bonus to the whole situation. But yes, those are all things that Bob and I have discussed over the years that hopefully listening to and watching this, you can take some of the difficult lessons that I've learned with Bob along my side, whispering in my ear, don't do that. Don't do that. Or maybe you should try this. Maybe this will help you have a little bit fewer bumps than Josh had.
And it's not just the Karate Kid. It's going back to those wonderful Aikido Bruce Lee metaphors of filling a cup. So everyone, I mean, there's some Asian, sort of philosophy things that are really useful when it comes to focus, when it comes to experience and things that you may want to just get out of Agile, get out of technology sometime and just sort of read something there from a mindset point of view. I want to bring up a third thing, Josh, to see, and this goes back to getting shit done. And I'm going to tee it up with move from me. So initially it's always I am getting shit done. You need to move from I or me to us and we as soon as you possibly can. You will fail with the I me because you can't sustain it. You have to create, unless you're a founder of a company of one, then I me and I is us and we. But normally that's not the case. You're in a culture, you're in an ecosystem, and you have to. This goes back to what Josh was saying about putting a problem in front of two people and solving it together. That's a two-person. That's we. You need to get it to we and us as soon as possible, and then step back. Like give yourself the sort of the grace to say, now I don't have to be part of every conversation. I've been the instigator of this vision, and give yourself permission to step back and maybe do something else. Take another step. So react to that, Josh. What do you think?
Yeah, that's the trick. That's also the hardest part, because we go back to the work you have to do to get everybody sharing a lens. Everybody has their own lens with which they view the world. They have their own historical baggage of problems and challenges and things they've tried, things they haven't tried. They also have their own incentives, and understanding incentives just across departments and what one group is trying to do versus another group, and then working to align everybody to, instead of having their own lens of the world, viewing the world in the center, to working, educating yourself, educating everybody else, to where we can all have one shared lens of how we're viewing this problem and all work side by side to make it happen. That requires the erosion approach. That's going to take a long time, a lot of effort, and a lot of frustration. But there just aren't shortcuts to it. And so you're just going to have to accept that. And there's a reason it doesn't work that way. There's a reason it hasn't worked that way for the previous 10 years, previous 20 years of that company, of that organization, of that team, of whatever it is, right? There's a reason it's not that way, because it's hard. People maybe tried. Maybe they got halfway there. Maybe they got 99% there, but they didn't get there. It's on you to make that happen. And we go back to accepting the reality of 18 to 24 months or something like that to make that happen. Are you willing? Are you willing to take that on and be the torchbearer for that change? And not only just like think about being a torchbearer, but like when things get dark, when you get halfway down that path, when you get 12, 13 months in and you feel like you haven't made the change you wanted to make, that torchbearer, you may have to stoke that flame a little bit. And you might be the only one that is willing to stoke the flame, but your organization needs you to be the torchbearer to keep that flame lit, to keep it bright as you're going through those dark times of trying to drive this change. That's not easy. And there might not be anybody to lift you up. So you're going to have to work to lift yourself up.
Hey, Metacasters, I have a confession. This doesn't always, in fact, I don't know if this has ever happened, but I made a mistake. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. True story. Josh and I met at a company called Teradata, 15, 16-ish, maybe a little more years ago. Josh was a whippersnapper build engineer manager at the time, and I was a medium-aged whippersnapper, I don't know, QA guy, agile process guy or something. And I left. I didn't have the grit. I wasn't gritty enough. And I left maybe after 6 months or something like that. And Josh stuck it out for 2-3 years. And it was a hard environment. And we've talked in previous Metacast episodes years ago or over the years. And Josh has sort of used that, and he said, I should have seen the light earlier. Bob, you saw the light, and I should have seen the light earlier. And so it was always like he was learning from Mr. Miyagi. Well, Mr. Miyagi in this case was a wuss. Mr. Miyagi bailed out. And what Josh showed in that instance was grittiness. And it really relates to this episode. And he may not admit it. He may not even agree with me. I don't really care. I think he showed tremendous grit and stick-to-itiveness in that company. Did they knock it out of the park? No. It was a really challenging environment. But I've never said I admired. So I wimped out. And Josh persevered. And he did some good things there, maybe even some great things there. But forget that. It's the character of his will, the character of his example. And I just wanted to amplify that. That's what we talk about. That's what it takes, is working through adversity. It does take time. It does take grit. And sometimes people will around you, they'll be, I didn't have it, what it took at the time. And so, but you have to do that. You have to do it. And I regret that to some degree. I was like, I regret not partnering with Josh, because I imagine what the two of us could have done together. Right? We could have killed people and gotten them out of our way. Right. And then we could have taken over the entire company.
Sure. Maybe I guess we could have done that.
Maybe I took that in a dark turn, but I wanted to give that example, and I wanted to flip it, because we've always talked about that historically as being, a lesson learned for Josh. You know what it also is? It was a lesson learned for Bob.
Yeah. So I think those are two lenses for the same situation that we were in. And we obviously both learned from each other, and lessons that I took from that was recognizing, okay, you've run into that wall a million times, and you're willing to run into that wall a million times more. Is that wall accepting dents? And the choice that I made in that moment was, I felt like the effort I was putting into the organization, I kept pouring it in. I gave it everything I had, and it was not netting out in success. So we talked about, it's going to get dark, it's going to get hard, it's going to be all those things. And I got to a point where I don't think this is the best place for my efforts to be placed. And can I have a bigger impact, a broader impact, if I apply the same effort somewhere else? And that's what I landed on. And that's the argument that I tell myself, that's the story I tell Josh, is that I then learned, okay, cool. One of the things I took away from that was, how do I recognize a situation like that in a company sooner? Can I recognize it before I even join? That was the lesson that I tried to take with me, of how do I apply these? And Bob, depending on how you choose to look at it, Bob recognized sooner than I did that, hey.
So there's two lenses. Stop it. I was applauding you, Josh, and I'm
just trying to give everybody both lenses.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fair.
yeah, yeah.
That's fair. But it's you showed incredible. It takes Metacasters the point. It's not about Teradata. It's about it takes gumption. It takes grit. It ain't easy. There's no easy button. And there's a billion of factors, and you have to decide when. But don't go in don't go in half-hearted, right? Don't go in. Oh, well, I'm going to give it 3 tries. Don't then just run for the hills, right? Yes, I can. Right? Yes, I can get in the field. Right? Get some partners, and you have to be gritty through that, and take that in there.
Yep, you have
How do we
to.
do, Josh?
Good. You just have to. I just wish I could think of a. There is no shortcut. You just have to accept. You have to, you know, put on your
Well,
big
here's
boy and
and
big girl pants and just accept this is going to be difficult. And here we go.
maybe this is the end. Maybe I'd like to end the episode this way, and not very many people do what we're talking about. So remember that coach Metacasters. So my feeling, I'm going to use numbers. My feeling is like 90% of the folks are like that coach. They're running around the field complaining, telling people what to do, judging, etc. Oh, you should do this. Oh, you should do that. Oh, you suck at this. You should, right, judging, etc. And then there's this small few with yes it can, and they get in the game and they take the risk and they have the grittiness. And those are the folks that make a difference in the world. I think this is not just an agile. I think this is anything in life. Is probably like this 90-10 split. And I know that sounds extreme, but I think there's the intrepid few that have yes you can, and then you have to activate it. So the question you have, Metacasters, is are you going to be circling the field, or are you going to get in the game and be an activator?
Man, you were right.
So
Yeah,
from
mic
beautiful
drop.
downtown Cary, North Carolina,
And beautiful downtown Fuquay Arena, North Carolina.
I'm Bob Galen.
And I'm Josh Anderson.
Shake
and bake.
Take care, y'all.
All right. Man, this guy landed it like a freaking champ.